Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Apex Clearing, the custodian and clearing engine powering the future of wealth management, released its Q4 2020 Apex Millennial 100 report. And joining me to review top millennial holdings and trends is Bill Capuzzi, CEO of Apex Clearing. Bill, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks. This is always one of my favorite reports to cover.
Jill, great to see you again. Happy New Year.
Thank you, and same to you. And before we get into the top holdings, let's discuss the overall environment. It certainly was the perfect storm to drive up retail trading in 2020. Tell us about this meaningful shift.
Yeah, so think about, let's back up into 2019, right? There was a little bit of the pin pulled with Schwab saying they're going to zero commission, TD, E-Trade. So some of this started in 2019. Now, again, I think, Apex had been empowering this through the likes of Robinhood well before that, but the big boys got into zero commission. Fast forward into 2020, you have the pandemic hits. Okay, so people are, you've reduced the friction, right, by zero commission. You've put, apps in everyone's hands in terms of being able to access the markets. Tremendous volatility, no sports, right? So people are, what do I do? And like you said, with volatility, volume, with markets bouncing all over the place, it is exactly what you said, which has been a perfect storm.
And what's the methodology behind the Apex Millennial 100 report?
Yeah, so we have roughly across all of our clients, we have about 13 million customers on our books today. The millennials in particular make up almost 2 million customers. And what we look at is what are they holding, right, over the course of the quarter, and how are they changing in terms of total value? And so millennials, roughly, there's, like I said, 1.8 million customers in this cohort. The average age is 32 years old. The average account size is about $3,200. I think the other part of it that's interesting that's starting to emerge in 2020 was now we have the Gen Zs coming up behind. And so you will do this the next time, but Gen Zs now is over 500,000 customers on Apex's books. Oh, wow. Average age is 19, so you have very young investors, and their average account size is roughly $1,200.
It's pretty amazing, 500,000 average age 19. And we spoke about the surge in retail trading. What can you tell us about millennial account balances, and what was the account attributed to this rise that you've seen?
So fourth quarter, we saw the account values in aggregate amongst the millennials increase by 24%. And so part of that's new money coming in. But when you take 24% and then you look at the S&P, let's just say, right, or the Nasdaq 100 in terms of how did that perform? If I just took the S&P was up 11%. So this millennial cohort outperformed the market almost 2 to 1. That's one, I think, important statistic. The other is that in this quarter, millennials drove $2.6 billion of new money into their accounts. Right, so I talked before about the $3,200, the average size. Obviously, the market is rising, so those account values are increasing. They're also putting net new monies in, right, to the tune of billions of dollars in the course of last quarter.
And let's take a look at some of the key holdings. It's a little bit different than when we spoke last quarter, but it's no surprise to see electric vehicle names take top spots.
Yeah. Over the course, again, 2020, lots changed, right? So Apple had held the top spot forever in our Millennial 100. Last year, Tesla took over, which again, the market is, I think that's pretty broad across the market. Tesla is taking on a meaningful part of many people's portfolios. The other interesting name that hit the top 10 is NIO, right, which is also in that electronic vehicle space. And frankly, for me, as a Gen Xer, NIO taking on a top 10, not just in millennials, but in in Gen Xers, that was pretty surprising. On the other side, I would just say in the fourth quarter, what we saw was some of the names that had started to take off, travel stocks really dropped pretty meaningful. And then probably not too surprising as we get into this sort of new phase of the vaccines, some of the work from home stocks, right? So DocuSign was a high flyer in 2020, really dropped in rankings. Zoom, what we're on right now, also dropped 5 spots on the rankings in the fourth quarter.
And across generations, you saw an uptick in the vaccination names.
Yeah, I mean, not too surprising. Pfizer, Moderna, right, the two that came out first in terms of the vaccines, took a prominent spot across Z, the millennials, Gen X, and baby boomers.
I also thought it was interesting that younger investors gravitated to SPACs.
Yeah, so drilling into that. So first of all, 2019, there was not a single SPAC to be found anywhere on any of our cohorts, right, across any of the different generations. Here we are at the end of 2020, 10 names of the 100 in the Millennial Index are SPACs. And, you start drilling into what the names are. So there is some consistency with some of the other things we talked about, right? So Fisker and Helion, right, 2 SPACs, green energy, right? There's a consistency there. And so there's also a number of names in and around the healthcare space. And I think the interesting thing around SPACs in particular is it's a vehicle to bring these companies public quickly, right? And number one. Number two is, you understand SPAC market, the price starts low, right? So we're talking about millennials. Yes, there's fractional share trading, but it's $10 a share. These are not trading at the multiples like a Tesla or a Google. And so the prices are fairly low. There's a lot of upside in a number of the names that are coming out in SPACs, and the millennials are buying right into it.
Yeah, I thought that was super interesting. And do you expect this momentum to continue in 2021? Any other trends that we should be watching?
Yeah, look, I would have thought that given the election, post-election coming into this year, things would start to smooth out. I will tell you that early reads on January in terms of our numbers, we're continuing to open between 500,000 and 600,000 accounts a month, right? So that pace continues. And the pace of activity in and around trading, right? Both actively, people picking stocks, as well as people that are passively investing in the likes of a Betterment. The money just continues to pour in, right? And part of it is the market continues, right? And I think, and then you have, stimulus that's coming in. So we saw that in 2020 with the government stimulus. I think we'll see the same certainly through the first quarter.
All right, Bill, great to catch up with you as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.